ultimately, we started asking, and property managers asked us, they said, hey, I got your service for my own house, but how can you help me get tenants to change their air filters on time? And how could we do that? And so we kind of just addressed those different failure points and said, what would be the perfect way to solve those in a cost-effective way?
Welcome to the Property Management Brainstorm Show with Bob Preston. Bob is the president, owner, and broker of North County Property Group, the fastest growing and top-ranked property management company in North County, San Diego. This podcast is for property owners and investors who are considering hiring a professional property management company to manage their property assets. You'll hear from leading professionals on the best practices surrounding the San Diego rental market, what's involved in successfully renting your property, and how to make sure your property is managed correctly. Now, here is your host, Bob Preston.
Welcome, brainstormers, to the Property Management Brainstorm Show. I'm Bob Preston, your host, broadcasting from our studio at North County Property Group in Del Mar, California. Took a little hiatus in the month of July for some vacation time, but I'm back and ready to go. So if you're new here, please subscribe so you have ongoing access to all of our great episodes. And if you like what you hear, please pay it forward with a positive review. On this episode of Property Management Brainstorm, the focus will be on home wellness as an essential part of healthy living. One aspect of home wellness and healthy living is the air quality within your home. Today's guest on the show is Andrew Smallwood, Director of Sales and National Accounts at Second Nature, a company providing an easy and automatic way to get the right air filters for your home, to change your air filters on time every time. Andrew, welcome to Property Management Brainstorm. So glad you're here.
Bob, thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Great. Hey, I always kick things off by introducing yourself. Maybe tell us how you ended up at the company and what you do for the company and what Second Nature is all about.
Absolutely. So, Andrew Smallwood here, and I'm the Director of Sales at Second Nature. I joined about 3 years ago, and Second Nature helps property managers design and deploy resident benefit packages. So they can create a superior rental experience for residents and provide more value for homeowners and add $100 in profit per door per year for the property managers. We are, I should say, more than just serving property managers, but delivering air filters on time. That's our cornerstone service. And I would just imagine your listeners would be most interested in what we do for property managers. So starting there.
Yeah, no question. And we also have a lot of individual landlords who listen in. So if you service those types of people too, then we're speaking to that audience as well.
Great.
So I understand you guys have grown a lot really fast. New round of funding, I heard, in July.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. And, it turns out when there's a global pandemic that all of a sudden contactless delivery becomes a very high priority for a number of people. And saving money on their utilities and HVAC bills and, providing value to residents that can pay and stay, and better results for homeowners as well is increasingly important. So that's I would say what that reflects.
That's cool. So you guys, I don't like to say benefit from the pandemic, but you've piggybacked on some of the demands that people have, and that's good on you. It's an opportunity, so why not seize the moment? Hey, I read a piece that was written about one of your founders, and I think the story was that the genesis of the company was he walked into a hardware store trying to buy air filters, right? Is this how it goes? And couldn't get what he wanted, had a hard time finding an air filter. And so what's the issue? Right? Why air filters are your cornerstone? Why are air filters so challenging, and what's the big deal?
Yeah, great question. So the problem, that we solve of getting air filters changed on time is one that a lot of people can relate to if they've, had to go to a store to purchase an air filter, or have simply forgotten to go to a store to purchase an air filter until it was a bigger problem. It's one of those out of sight, out of mind issues. And we just realized kind of the breakdown points, Bob, are somebody doesn't know their size, or they don't know the quality to buy. We can get into some of this later, but they don't know how frequently to change them, or they forget any number of these things. In the case of tenants, some of them don't remember it's their responsibility, one of the many things outlined in their lease that they're not reading after they sign it. And ultimately, we started asking, and property managers asked us, they said, hey, I got your service for my own house, but how can you help me get tenants to change their air filters on time? And how could we do that? And so we kind of just addressed those different failure points and said, what would be the perfect way to solve those in a cost-effective way other than doing it yourself? Because, and I guess, Bob, you can tell me if your audience is multifamily. We do have a program for that, like large multifamily communities, but for scattered properties, like small multifamily.
It's all the above, right? Yeah, it's all the above.
Awesome. Sure. So small multifamily and single family, those scattered properties, you don't have on-site maintenance that's going to go out. And so you rely on a tenant in most cases to do it, at least on some frequency until you can get there. And we had to figure out how to do that in a cost-effective way so that it was adding value to these companies. So those are really kind of the problems that we got interested in and got to work on solving.
It's kind of out of sight, out of mind, right? Trying to think of an analogy, maybe changing the oil in your car. I don't know. I'm coming up with something here, right? I mean, a lot of people just don't even know that they should do it. And if you ask them, hey, when was the last time you changed your oil? Might scratch their head and then might maybe have a little sticker in the upper left-hand corner of their windshield that they would refer to. I know I look at it maybe a couple times a year and I'm usually over my mileage, right? So, I mean, is that kind of an analogy? Like I would imagine a lot of tenants don't even know that there is a air filter.
We have a number of residents that don't know what an air filter is. So yes, absolutely. They have to be educated on that. And I think it's a great analogy. And further, with an oil change, if you have a car like mine, then all you've got is the sticker in the window. Some of them have the oil gauge, right? That will tell you like oil life or percentage. But it's not totally obvious. It's not totally in your face. You do have to pay attention to it. And with air filters, it's really even more out of sight, out of mind. So, we wanted to make air filters and remembering to do it as easy as opening the front door and a box showing up, is that physical in-hand reminder that it's time to do it. And here's everything you need to be able to do it successfully, as opposed to it being in the closet or out of sight.
So
out of mind. Is
part of the complicating factor that one size does not fit all? And there are different, right? Isn't that true? You have to know the dimensions, not only that, but there are different levels of air filters, maybe different quality levels. There's pleated, there's fiberglass, there's washable is another variety, right? Different ratings, kind of like, we're wearing masks today. They're all rated differently for COVID. Is that part of the complication? So if I walk into Home Depot or Ace Hardware, what am I looking for?
Great question. And it ties back to that original experience you were talking about where our company was founded, of going into the store. And when someone walks into the store, oftentimes what they will find, 30%, 40% of our customers can't find their size at their local store. And this is something, Bob, we're not proud to say this, that it's kind of a shame of, the HVAC industry that existed before we did, and home builders and the air filter industry, ultimately, there's 380,000 different SKUs of air filters. Tens of thousands of sizes. And so, stores cannot carry all of them on their shelf. They do carry and the way to think about that is, hey, there's a dozen or a couple dozen sizes that make up, half or, 60% roughly. But there's a long tail of people who can't find their filter size at a store. And that's a problem to solve. The people who do have their size at the store, even still, the store's not going to carry, if you go to a grocery store or hardware store, they're not going to carry the 24 sizes. Mm-hmm. They'll carry 3 or 4. If you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, you will find, the couple dozen sizes there that cover 2/3 or so of the market. But that is a big problem.
So finding what you need, specifically what you need, can sometimes be kind of a headache. So, what's the big deal? Why is changing your air filter regularly so important, and how often should you do it?
That's a good question. And I would say it depends on where you are. Meaning, and here's one of the things I'll say. That was one
of my questions for later, but I'll let you answer it now.
We'll get into it now. So, the air filter industry does something that makes sense from a marketing standpoint. If you think about people that don't know much about air filters, but that we have been kind of trying to educate people against, because it's just not the most precise way of thinking about it. And that's this, that they will say, hey, this is a 30-day air filter, or this is a 90-day air filter. And you were saying pleated, which is, hey, this 30-day fiberglass filter or this 90-day air filter. But you and I both know the weather in Del Mar. I mean, I wish I was where you are 360 days a year, because I mean, do you even need air conditioning out there? I'm not sure. Maybe one day a year, you're like, I wish I had it, but every other day you're in good shape.
My personal thing is I live, just a couple blocks from the beach. And of course the weather is really temperate. Not only that, but we really don't turn on the heat much in the winter either. So, like in our case, we probably don't need to do it as frequently as someone, say, I don't know, Dallas, right? It's cold in the winter. It's boiling hot in the summer. I'm guessing their HVAC is running all the time.
That's exactly right. And so how can we call this a 90-day filter? Because 90 days in Del Mar is not 90 days in Dallas or Tampa, Florida.
Right.
And so, really the function of how often you should change the air filter, there's a lot of factors. Do you have pets? What temperature are you running your thermostat? Do you have carpets? What kind of flooring? I could make a long list, but the couple key things that you want to look at is basically run hours of the system, right? And that's going to be a function of what's the weather, like in ultimately the climate like in your geography and the dynamics of your home that are going to impact that. And so, we've done a lot of studying into this because it is our business and gone deep into this. And so we've got kind of like recommended frequencies, whether it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or in some cases, a different schedule to make sure we're optimizing for what's the lowest utility spend, what's the lowest HVAC maintenance, I'm preventing the maintenance, and I'm ensuring good air quality in this home. Those are the three outcomes people typically care about. So that's what we're trying to organize that around and make that decision around. Okay.
Well, that's a terrific answer, because we've been kind of focusing, or I've been thinking in terms of air quality, but you're saying that there's also longevity of your system, of your HVAC system, and also, I guess, the energy efficiency as well.
That is right.
They run better if they've got a clean filter. Is that right?
It is. The EPA did a study, and it's 48% of the average home's of their energy spend is based on HVAC, heating and cooling the home. Mm-hmm. So half of their energy bill is coming from heating and cooling. And if it's trying to push air through a clogged filter, system's working much harder, the utility bill is going up. And so whether someone's got a filter delivery service or they're buying them from the store, air filters pay for themselves on the utility bill before you get to the HVAC savings and ultimately the air quality benefits.
So this is a little off topic for you guys, because you guys sell air filters, but maybe you have an opinion on it. We don't run our system very often, but there's other bad guys in our home, right? There's pollen there. We do have pets. We live in a highly moist area. So I got to believe that there's mold spores floating around, in or outside of our home. Should we be having some other source of filtration, like what are they? The HEPA filters or something like that?
I'm looking at mine over in the corner. I've got this $600 instrument.
Oh, do you?
It's a Molecule is the name of it. Molecule with a K. And it's got a Pecco filter in it. Anyway, without getting into all of that, just because I'm an air quality nerd, some people don't know the World Health Organization, the number one environmental issue that they've put, health issue, is indoor air quality and just air quality. And a lot of people in America don't know your indoor air quality, it can be 2 to 5 times worse than outdoor air quality. Like I think about a lot of the people north of you in LA, where my dad's family is from, they think of like smog and outdoor air quality, but the reality is we spend so much of our time indoors, and now more than ever. Especially now. Yeah. Right. During this pandemic. Exactly right. That, we take on average 20,000 breaths per day. And the question is, each of those breaths, are they contributing to your health or are they stealing from it? And it's why fiberglass filters are a problem, because they don't filter even visible particles. Dust and dirt gets through them into the system. It's why you need a pleated filter. But back in the day, pleated filters were made of cotton and it would restrict airflow. So you'd have these issues of your systems would be breaking down because air's not getting through. And so now we use a synthetic material that allows for airflow. You're getting basically the same pressure drop rating as a fiberglass filter, but you're actually capturing the particles so that you're not breathing them in on a regular basis.
So what are some of the things that can pollute your indoor air quality in your home? I mean, I rattle off some things. We talked about pets and mold, pollen. I'm guessing there's chemicals. What are the bad guys that you're trying to filter out?
You named a lot of them. Dust and pet dander and a lot of those things. And obviously one thing people care a lot about right now is virus and ultimately virus carriers, the droplets and whatnot that viruses are on. And I can share with you your audience a statistic about that, which is the fiberglass, the rating scale for filters is MERV rating is typically the industry standard. There's also an FPR and MPR rating, but using the MERV scale, which is kind of the most ubiquitous scale that people talk about with filters, a MERV 2 or MERV 4 type fiberglass filter captures basically 11% of these particles. If you go to a MERV 13 filter, which is the high end, probably the highest you'd use in a residential home, a pleated filter, you're capturing 87% of those virus carrying particles.
So can it capture COVID? I mean, a lot's been made of air circulation. Is it safer outdoors than indoors? Do air conditioners spread it around? I know you're not a health professional, but you're in the industry. So what do air filters do in regard to COVID-19? Well,
Bob, I'm going to humble myself because I'm not an epidemiologist here, but
totally. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
I guess what I can share that I do feel confident saying is that I think most people who know this know that viruses themselves are extremely small in size. And I'm not 100% sure if we've determined whether COVID is aerosolized or it's just in the air and that's the spread. But respiratory droplets, what they're typically on your breath or in a sneeze or a cough, what they're carried upon, at least what we think is a primary mode of transmission, that's what I'm referencing when I say 87%, of that's being captured. Kind of like when you hear about the mask ratings, right? What percentage is being captured. So,
okay. Well, it certainly couldn't hurt. And I mean, if you're trying to be safe by wearing a mask, makes sense you would want to filter your air within your house, right?
Commercial buildings, actually, a lot of them have said, hey, normally we do like a MERV 8 or a MERV 11, and a lot of them have gone to MERV 13 to be able to reopen these commercial buildings because they recognize it's important for them to have that health standard in their buildings as they're inviting people back in.
So what are your target markets or vertical markets? I mean, you mentioned property management companies. Do you also sell directly to homeowners, to individual landlords, commercial properties? I could think of a bunch of different vertical markets myself. So what are your markets?
Yeah, great question. It's funny because a lot of our property management clients, the professional management companies we work with, we've been I'm going to slightly brag on our team here, but they've been the back-to-back NARPM, which is the Professional Trade Association for Property Managers, National Vendor Affiliate of the Year, back-to-back. And a lot of them, I think, just think of us as a service for property managers, when in fact we started in 2012 as a direct-to-consumer business, like a Dollar Shave Club for air filters directly to homeowners.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
And we have tons of people who sign up. And then we do have, a bunch of commercial partners. I mean, brands everybody would know, from restaurants like Applebee's to hotel chains like Hilton or Marriott anyway, without rattling them off, commercial, we've got rental property management, and then homeowners for their own personal homes. I could talk about other specific types of clients we work with, but that's a good kind of basic summary.
No, that's cool. So you don't have to be a property manager to buy your product and sign up for an account. I guess that's what I'm getting at. So the individual landlords that are out there who have, one or more rental properties could be a client and have this be built into their program. What about home automation? Is there a play there? I mean, I'm trying to understand. I know that smart thermostats and leak detection devices and certain levels of home automation are popping up now pertaining to HVAC and other aspects within your home. When it's time to change your filter, like on my refrigerator, I get this little light that turns on and it beeps at me. Do you have the equivalent, I guess, regarding your air filter on your HVAC?
Great question. And I think that is one of those where a future that we see is as these smart home companies can dial into the HVAC sensors and HVAC performance where they're measuring pressure drop on a dynamic basis, as opposed to getting your filter every 90 days. Some people might get it 81 days out or 108 days out, and you kind of sharpen the pencil on that, but it's an incremental improvement. It's not like a dramatic change, so to speak, versus just changing it on a regular static schedule. So we do see things going that way, and it will be an improvement when that's enabled. Of like, imagine a smart thermostat saying, hey, based on the pressure drop or whatever it is, there's something happens, and that's when the delivery is triggered. And that's all.
That's interesting. So it's a different way of measuring, hey, your air filter's dirty. It's not just like the air filter triggers, that something regarding the system itself recognizes when it's time to change the filter. That's pretty interesting. Wow. Hey, this has been really great. I, have always been wanting to talk to you guys. I'm a NARPM member. I happen to be the president of Cal NARPM this year, and you guys have always been fantastic supporters. So we hope we see you at the Cal NARPM convention that's coming up next year. What else about it? I mean, is there anything else that I'm missing or that we haven't touched on regarding air quality and air filters?
Well, just listening to what you said, it reminds me of something that we say in our company and that our clients say, which is that professional property managers like you, Bob, they know big doors swing on these small hinges sometimes. And air filters is one of those things where if you think about the number one, part of someone's energy bill is this heating and cooling. And the number one way to reduce that by 10, 15%, according to the EPA, is changing your air filter on time. The HVAC, probably not in Del Mar, but in most of the country or as a nation as a whole, the single largest item in single family property management, maintenance, like the largest dollar item without question has been HVAC. And so reducing that, we did a study with the National Rental Home Council. And basically we took 7,700 single family homes in 4 markets. And across 18 months, we actually measured for these homes where we're relying on the tenant to go to the store and change it versus where they're being shipped filters every 60 to 90 days on our standard program. What's the difference in outcome for HVAC work orders and the financial impact of that? And the answer was 38% less work orders when the filters are being delivered versus relying people to go to the store, which a very small percentage do.
Quarter being a service call pertaining to your HVAC system that's now stopped functioning. Is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly right. And anybody who's a self-managing landlord or a property manager at some point gets that call of no heat, no air, with the exception perhaps being in San Diego, right? But
well, even here, I mean, this time of year, it can be pretty warm, so we do get it quite a bit. Okay, so yeah, it's air filters made easy. I mean, that's kind of what you guys offer. Like, come up with a way to get it delivered on schedule. I'm assuming all the model numbers of your HVAC system, what size, what type, what rating, all that gets input up front or handled by someone who's a professional on your end, kind of a consultant who helps walk a property manager or an owner through it?
Yeah. One of the biggest questions we get is, how do I implement this? How do I do something like this where it's a success and I'm getting these outcomes I want of a better rental experience for my resident, a convenient service for them. And then I'm getting, as the property owner, the reduction in HVAC maintenance that usually falls on my plate, even if it was the tenant's fault. And ultimately, I'm just not having to think about it. It's just set it and done. How do I implement that? And for professional management companies, it's leases and renewals is where they're enrolling. And we've got people on our team like Dylan White, and who I know and BB on our team. We've got 5 or 6 property managers, people who are actually our clients and rolled this out of their companies that we've actually hired that expertise in. And so they do everything from here's the lease language, like the 2 sentences you plug into your lease. Here's the move-in flyer that explains the service to your resident, to here's how you add the accounting GL into Propertyware, AppFolio, whatever service you use.
Wow. So.
And ultimately it's all plug and play so that, 30 hours becomes 30 minutes. And most people are actually deploying this as a resident benefit package.
So you're giving us the playbook, if you will, and then all we have to do is implement it and take it from there.
That's what we're known for in the industry. So absolutely.
That's great. I love it. Cool service. Hey, I want to shift gears here a little bit because we are running low on time. You guys are working with NARPM. We've mentioned NARPM a couple times and playing a significant role in sponsoring and hosting an upcoming event, which sounds pretty cool, by the way. I'm going to attend. It's called the PM Leadership XChange. You called it something different, PMLX, I think you
just
referred
abbreviated.
to it.
That's right.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. Can you tell us about that and who it is open to? And I guess why should someone attend, right?
Sure, absolutely. So, and yeah, thanks for the opportunity to speak about it because we're extremely excited. It might be a question of like, why is an air filter company putting on an event like this? But we're doing it in partnership with NARPM, in partnership with RentBridge, another vendor. And ultimately, we went to 12 of our friends and vendor, best of breed services, if you will, in the industry. And we said, hey, we want to create an opportunity for people to come together and get into conversation about what changes they need to make and how to move their businesses forward and move themselves, their teams forward from a leadership development and organizational development standpoint. And so every single one of them said they were in, then 100 people early registered, and it's just kind of taken off from there. And NARPM also lost every opportunity to raise money for their charity because all of these in-person events got canceled.
Right.
And so, and as you know, I mean, we're looking forward to Cal NARPM next year, right? Fingers crossed. 100% we will be there, assuming it's in person. And if it's virtual, we'll be there too.
One or the other, we're going to have it, right? It's March 31st. Put it in your book, either virtual or in person. It's going to be in Napa, California if it's in person.
It's always such a fantastic event, and we couldn't imagine missing it. And so having those events canceled and not being able to move things quick enough to get them converted to virtual, we said, we need to create an opportunity for people to come together because all of this networking has been lost. All of this convening for conversation about how to move the business forward in innovative ways has been lost. And the fundraising opportunity. So 100% of the proceeds of this event are going to NARPM's charity, Alexander Hamilton Scholars. And that got us motivated to do something really big. So I think we're going to look on the 26th, Bob, and be very proud of what we did together. And there's a 40-person team involved in this. So I'm just really grateful to see and energized to see everyone coming together to make this happen. Is
there a theme or a focus around it? Is it basically just, hey, let's get together and brainstorm how we improve our businesses? Or how are you going to facilitate this? What are the topics? I mean, maybe you don't want to share too much, pull back the curtain just yet, but.
Well, I would say anyone who wants to get more information than I would share here, PM-XChange.com, which maybe we could get in the show notes, has the registration page and some more information there. But we wanted to...
I'll get that in the show notes, yeah.
Here's a couple of unique things. What's different about this event than everything else is it is not a webinar. We committed. This is not lecture format content. And I love lecture format content and webinars. And I am a podcast junkie. I've added this one to my feed and subscribed to it.
Cool.
I mean, I've got to give it 5 stars, at least for my episode, right? But
right.
All that to say, I love that, passive consumption of information. But what we wanted to do differently was say 50%, we're going to be bringing in global thought leaders, people like Christopher Lochhead. He's got the #1 marketing podcast on iTunes. Mm-hmm. Susan Scott, I think she sold a little over 1 million books of fierce conversations on communication and culture and conversation. We've got entertainment like JP Sears, 400 million YouTube views, comedian. And we've also got industry best practices. We've got an executive panel talking about the future of property management. We've got people talking about process, workflow, automation, who are experts in the industry and a number of other topics. But 50% of the time, the number one thing that kind of directed our format, Bob, was people would often say when they would go to these events, I love the content, but some of the best nuggets I get are at like the lobby bar, talking to people like Bob about what we were just listening to together, or something else entirely. And we said, we're actually going to facilitate the discussion, to enable those kind of conversations. And that's half of the event. So people are going to be fully immersed, very interactive, very collaborative. And there's going to be some world-class content as well.
I love it. And I love that word nuggets. That's the word I use. I always tell my team when I go away to these conferences, I always try to come back with a half dozen nuggets because, that's really what it's all about. You're not going to come back with this whole new way of running your business. But if you can come back with 5 or 6 things that really inspire you to make a change at your company or maybe a change with yourself, to lead the company that much better, then it's well worth the investment. Hey, I look forward to attending, and I think it's going to be great. I'll put that in the notes for the episode notes on how people can find it. Hey, I also always like to ask my guests, if you're up for this, to tell a quick, brief story about themselves. It can be anything. You're a great storyteller, I can tell already. So you got to have something for me. And nothing, too personal or anything, just something that maybe has had an impact on your life or that happened to you that you'd love to share with our audience.
Yeah, we were talking about this right before we started up, and I didn't have something at that point, but what's coming to mind right now is when I think about the message of my life and what I want it to be, it's one of radical generosity. And one of the stories that I love to tell, it's part of the reason, by the way, I am so inspired and will be at Second Nature for a long time to come, because that is our company culture. I just have to say, like earlier when you're talking about, hey, it seems like you guys are doing very well. And yes, we are. However, while we are doing well, we're also doing good. And we're always focused on how do we add more and more value to the people that we serve and we care about. And so that's part of what's, inspired us to put on these 50 digital events that we've all learned to, from leading up to this conference on August 24th. And the personal story I wanted to share is actually of an Uber ride from a few years ago. And I used to travel. Remember when our ancestors traveled, Bob?
I know, right? Used to get on a plane.
So I'm landing at Nashville Airport, which is home for me. And normally I've got the routine down where right when I hit a certain part of the airport, I order the Uber and it's like pulling up right as I get in. But for whatever reason, I think it was like March Madness or there was something going on. And there was like an 8-minute delay, which of course felt like eternity. And I'm standing next to this nice couple from California, actually Walnut Creek, California. And I could tell they had been waiting on an Uber, but they'd waited till they got there to order it. So 15 minutes, and then it canceled at the last second. And so they're totally bummed out. And something inside me called and said, you know what? Just invite them into your Uber, drop them off first, let's just do it. We struck up some conversation. I found out, like me, they were into fine wine and nice spirits. I said, all right, we're actually going to go to my place first because I just got this case of bourbon. It's like a 20-year bourbon. Great. It's unbelievable. Like you have to taste it. And as soon as they tasted it, I could tell they were appreciating it at a level that was significant. It's like a $150 bottle of bourbon. And I just remember saying, you know what? Have this, take this with you. And actually I count them, Sylvan and Karen LaPointe. They're great friends today. And it's amazing how, when I think about PMLX and these other opportunities, like you just never know if you might be meeting a lifetime friend. You might be meeting that person who changes your business or changes your future, who's in front of you. And how would you show up to those interactions if you knew that was potentially the kind of person, or if you treated everyone like it could be that way? And so that's a big part of what motivates me to be radically generous and try to show up to give big and give first. And it's just a more fun and enjoyable way to move through things. So thanks for the opportunity to tell that story.
Dude, you gave me goosebumps. That was a cool story. You did good. It's a philosophy on life, not just in business, right? So it translates well into the culture you guys have at Second Nature. And I did notice your culture page. Really cool. I like what you guys stand for and everything about it. Let's switch gears. Thanks for the awesome story. Someone's only made me cry once with their story, and I've never had someone give me goosebumps. You just did. So that's a first with your story. Tell us how we can find Second Nature. How would someone reach out to you? If someone wanted to get in touch, wanted to join the program, how would they do that?
Yeah, great question. So, in regards to the event, I think we shared that PM-XChange. If someone's looking to connect directly with Second Nature, certainly they can go to secondnature.com for their own individual house. There's typically an offer, like a first shipment for free that they can find there. And if they're looking to get connected with our rental property management team, because we do some unique things like expiration dates and things that you can validate as a property manager that's slightly different from the homeowner product, then they can find the tab on our page about property management and real estate and submit, a request there to get in contact with the appropriate person on our team.
Cool. That's fantastic. Hey, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I'd love to keep talking. You're a true inspirational person. I mean, hopefully you're going to be on the agenda for the exchange because I love listening to you, and I'd love to continue, but in the interest of time, I need to wrap up the episode today. So any last words or thoughts for our audience before we part ways here today?
Bob, I just want to say thank you. And it's a real gift. And I know your listeners I hope they tell you this as often as they feel it, which is that, bringing people together for great conversations and letting people eavesdrop in all of these things, it's a real gift. And I know everything that goes into producing a show like this, it's a lot. And we're honored to be a part of your show, which we know is just a top ranking show. And it's great to talk with you. I look forward to our conversations to come.
Yeah, it's cool. You came in on one day's notice, so thank you so much. I appreciate it. I had a cancellation. Andrew jumped in and said, hey, I'll take the spot. So that was pretty cool of you too. I really appreciate it. Okay, so Andrew, thanks for joining the show. As we wrap up today, I'd like to make another quick plug to our listeners to click on the subscribe button and give us a like. Also, please pay it forward with a positive review. Andrew's going to do it. He said he's going to give 5 stars. I'd encourage you all to do that as well so that we can get more great guests like Andrew to come on the show. And that concludes today's episode of the Property Management Brainstorm Show. Thank you for joining. Until next time, we'll be in the field working hard for our clients to keep their properties managed properly and maintain top tenant relations, and we'll catch you next time.